Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast for conscious, cycle-breaking parents ready to turn toddler tantrums into teachable moments. Hi, I'm Cara Terrell, a lifetime lover of littles, mom to 2 grown and flown girls, and an early childhood educator. Through the show, I teach you my collaborative parenting methodology for nurturing your little human's mind, body, and spirit. Because how you connect and collaborate in the first 5 years is how you raise happy, healthy kids who grow into the best version of themselves and find true success in school and life. Welcome back, Toddler Tribe. Today, I'm talking about infant loss, and I'm just going to give this trigger warning for anyone who has experienced miscarriage, stillbirth, infant loss. This is a really important episode because it's so celebratory and it's full of joy and mostly the sweet and not so much the bitter. But I really just wanted to give that heads up before I dive in. So many of you know, if you have listened to the early episodes from the show, that I have 3 kids. And our oldest was born still at 40 weeks and 1 day. Her name is Emma Grace. She is the babe who made me a mother, even though I was unable to bring her home from the hospital and mother her here in this earthly world. And her birthday was recently. She's 24 years old in heaven. So with nearly a quarter of a century behind me from the loss, I am able to sit inside a knowing and an experience of grief and be here and share this with you without being a puddle on the floor and those racking sobs. But trust me, that's how my grief journey started. The dark days and the inability to make a decision, the wondering what even mattered anymore. Like if my baby couldn't live, then what mattered? Did it really matter what color my couch was? Did it really matter if I went to work? Did it really matter if I had money in the bank? I attacked grief the way I attack everything else in life, like a job. I did the work in many, many ways, and it won't surprise you to know that one of the ways I did the work was by serving others who were going through the same thing that I had lived through. I ran a group called Share of Southern Vermont for many, many years. I met with families in the hospital room. I helped them memorialize their beautiful kids. I ran infant walks and support groups. It was by connecting with others in different phases of their grief process that I was able to assimilate mine. And that's an important point. I did a lot of reading about grief. No surprise, right? But this idea of acceptance being the final phase, I couldn't accept acceptance. It's not something that felt right to me. And so I sat with it and I said, no, I'll never accept this. Not from a place of anger anymore. Years later, she was born September 8th of 2000. So here we are 24 years later. So it was probably 8 years later or so. And I was well into the philanthropic side of grief giving and sharing with others. And her sisters had been born, right? I knew that I could have and keep little humans in my life, that I realized, no, I'll never accept this. I've assimilated her into our world. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. because our baby, our youngest girl, who was born many years after Emma, just kind of put a capstone on it for me recently, and it's just really special. So I want to share it with you. So when our girls were little, and I realized, nope, assimilation is the answer, not acceptance, I realized that there needed to be, for me, some tradition, some consistency, some way of keeping her alive in our family, but not expecting, obviously, that she would ever be able to join us again. And for me, that meant celebrating her birthday every year, making it a real event, celebrating Christmas with her spirit around us. And so we had a tiny little tree that was just hers. And every year, Emma Grace got her own ornament, just like the girls did. And so her tree grew with ornaments as the years went by. What's really cool about that is now that the girls are adults and they took all their ornaments, I still have a tree full of ornaments, right? There's beauty in the tradition. There's beauty in the celebration. There's also kind of this growth that we get to experience and witness. We planted a bush. It's called a burning bush. It turns red in the fall. It's just gorgeous when we bought our house. And every year, as long as I could, because bushes grow more than people, I would go out and measure it to see if I could keep kind of a measurement of annual growth like you would a child on the wall. So many ways that we kept her alive. But the most important piece was that I committed to sharing her with her family, sharing her with her sisters. I didn't know Emma Grace. I have talked to a lot of families who have lost kids at 2, 3 years old. They knew their kids in a very different way than I knew mine. But I knew her spirit, and I knew that she had her very own unique personality. I had to grieve the fact that I would never know who that actually was. That was part of my intense process. But what mattered more to me when I brought her sisters into the world was honoring that, and then honoring that each of her sisters had their own unique personality, and they were allowed to be who they were supposed to be, who they were born to be. And that meant talking about our family as having 3 kids, being honest and keeping them connected in any way I could through awareness. Caroline, our youngest, when she was little, she used to say the funniest thing. And, here I was very emotional at times about this. When we would have conversations, I was always honest with them and told them answers to their questions about a sister who they never saw, never heard, just had to believe me that she had existed. We have one picture. That's it. Right? It was really challenging. And so there were times it would get kind of intense and then we would bring it back to the celebration of, yes, and we love all 3 of you. And so what Caroline used to say when she was little cracks me up, she used to say, we have 3 kids, but only 2 sit at the dinner table. So she summed it up in just a few words. Yes, we are a family of 5, but only 4 of us lived in this house. The level of emotional growth that you give your living kids when you honor and respect them enough to tell them the truth about the loss that your family experienced is just so big. You raise kids who can be more aware of other people's experiences and more compassionate and more empathetic in those really hard moments. And recently, this is how it all kind of, the bow came together, because trust me, there were times where I was judged for opening those conversations with my kids when they were so little. There were times where their friends' parents were like, why do you do this? Aren't you just causing more chaos? The parenting in public piece was not easy. And I knew that it wouldn't be. When you give your kids the words, a full heart, a full family spirit, but like you give them the words to go out in the world and say things that the world doesn't understand. Granted, and I will say I did this in a challenging time. Between 2000 and 2008, there was not a lot of, well, first of all, there weren't the mommy blogs, right? There weren't these online support groups. And the idea of talking about confidently owning loss, just it wasn't there yet. I wrote a book. I have a whole manuscript on this wall behind me called After, One Mother's Journey of Loss. I had an agent and everything. It's a good book. All the publishers that wrote back said, we love this. It's fantastic, but we're not buying it. Because this is a topic that nobody will buy. It was about money. They can't sell the book. They're not going to buy the book. But here is the reward. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for this. Caroline, who now lives in Tokyo, sent me a message the other day, a little audio message. I love those ones where you can hear her voice, and said, Mom, I need to thank you for always sharing with us about Emma, for teaching us about loss and how it affects a mom. I have a friend who knows someone who's going through this right now. And like, I feel really, really feel for her. I'm in it with her right now, praying for her. She said, I don't understand it because I didn't live it, but you did. And you've taught me how to see it in a different way. And now I can be here for a person who's living it for real in a different way. Taboo topics do not belong under rugs or hidden in walls. They don't. If you are a lost family, talk about your losses. Give your kids the gift of exploring what it feels like to normalize feelings of confusion and grief and loss. When you do that, you're raising adults who can be there for others in their time of need. I know this was a little different than a typical episode, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. I know that 1 in 4 families deal with this. So the percentage of you out there that have experienced loss in some way is pretty high. If you need someone to sit with, that is what my complimentary connection calls are for. Go ahead and hit the button in the show notes and tell me who you are. And tell me who your kids are. All of them, not just the ones who sit at your dinner table. Okay? Heavy topic, but a beautiful celebration. Until our next episode, stay mindful and proactive as we transform the toddler years.